Welcome back, everybody. Now we're starting with the dairy part of the dairy school. Our next presenter is Dr. Gordon Adams, and he's a private a practice vet from Darling. He graduated at Onderstepoort in 2009, and he's been at the private practice in Darling since 2011, so that's for the past 10 years. He's an animal production veterinarian and focusing especially on dairy. So he will share his experience of dairy or practice management. And so Dr. Adams, welcome to you. You can start sharing your screen.
There we go. Can you see me?
Yes, I can see you.
All right. Just start with the introduction and say hello to everyone so that they can put a face to the name. Yeah, so I'll be speaking about management as what I've learned over the last 10 years in our practice and how that fits into being a production animal vet or dairy veterinarian and having to juggle that along with management and the basic principles I've learned. A lot of those things also would have been covered to a degree by Darby, so thanks for that. So we're not going straight into dairy yet, but we'll be doing... There's someone needs to mute. Niku.
Please, everybody, just mute your computers. Thank you.
All right, otherwise I'm going to have to start talking very loud. Okay, all right, so let me, without further ado, see if I can share the screen. There we go. Okay. So just a bit of a background on myself. I worked for 2 years in the Transkei. We were supposed to do ComServe and that didn't happen, but I still did my 2 years there and that was an incredible experience and also learned quite a bit about setting up rural clinics in that area. And after that, I moved down to Darling and along with another vet, Johnny van der Merwe, we've grown the business of Darling to about 10 staff members. And we split between quite a strong retail offering to our clients. So selling veterinary medicines, Act 101 and Act 36 products. And then we have 4 vets in Darling, production animal vets. And the Durbanville branch of the business, there's 1 vet there doing dairies as well. So we're 5 dairy vets in total. And we service the Greater Swartland and Coburg area. So all TMR-based herds, intensive herds. And we form part of Tygerberg Animal Hospital. We merged with them, and that was the idea in 2014. And that business is majority small animal business. So I don't know, I haven't got a cursor now. There we go. So they would be companion animal based, and we would be the production animal based leg of the business. We are what we refer to as the PAU, so production animal unit, and the companion side would be the SAU, the small animal unit. As a percentage of turnover, we are about 10 to 15% of turnover of the business, and the companion animal side and retail offering on that side with vet shops makes up the rest of the turnover. And our business structure is we're a couple of shareholders or partners within the practice. And we've got about 60 or so vets in all the branches throughout the business. Okay. So I think I'd like to just share, it's quite difficult in an hour to go through management and to really get into the nitty-gritty of that. Can really go far down and speak for quite a while on it. So this is broad brushstrokes, and what I think would be of interest, and what I've learned along the way, and potentially where I started out, as you guys would be in final year now, I think, and potentially how my thinking has changed, and yeah, as you grow with experience and what becomes more important. So basic breakdown of a companion animal practice, so that would be one based in Fourways or in Cape Town, versus a rural practice. I've called it a rural production animal mixed practice, out in Swellendam or in Durban, Darling, or you know, servicing mainly a farming community or livestock in the area. That can be not specifically speaking to intensive pig and poultry farms. I'm speaking about our situation where we have very intensive dairies, but we also service sheep clients in the area, and we service beef clients in the area. So obviously rural versus urban. Business, B2B, is production animals, so that's business to business. Your client or your customer is a business, and the more intensive they are and the larger they are, it becomes more of a key account management type relationship. So you really form an integral part of that business, and you're part of the management team, as Davy alluded to in his discussion. On the small animal side, it's mainly business to customer. So you've got clients coming in with Fluffy or whoever, and you're seeing them either annually for vaccines or for elective procedures. Revenue split, I'm not going to go into that. It's either retail, services. Obviously, we're strongly service driven because that's what we studied for. And on the back of that, to complement what we do, we've got a retail offering, and that would be the same in our small animal side. You're servicing the clients, and you can use medication in your general procedures, and you have a retail offering of what you'd be using, but then also Act 36 on our side, that would be dips, doses, vaccines. On the small animal side, that would be your merchandise, your tick and flea products, whatnot. A big one, which I'll delve into a little bit later in the production animal side or a rural practice, is staffing. Because you're rurally based, your staffing is largely limited, versus on the companion animal side, you're in a more urban area, and with any other business, you have a lot more, a wider array of
Sorry, Gordon.
Staff that would, yeah.
Dr. Gordon, your slides, there's no movement in your slides.
I'm actually still speaking through the first one.
Okay, thank you.
I'll speed up a little bit now.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, I'll go through that a little bit later. Hours in a production animal practice versus hours in a companion animal practice. We have largely unscheduled or scheduled visits, but your hours extend past what your normal hours would be in a companion animal business. And then also the type of personality or vet that you're going to be attracting or working with in a rural setting versus in a urban setting. We generally find in a production animal practice, someone who's willing to come and work in a rural practice, they're willing to invest, you know, the job goes beyond just 8 o'clock to 6 o'clock. And there's a lot more goodwill associated with this opinion-based production animal vet and being based in a rural setting. So what are your options once you qualify and you want to get into dairy or into mixed practice? You can either get into single standalone mixed practice, one vet or multi-vet branches. You can, like we are, become part of a larger group of practices and in a business structure like that. Consultancy, where you run just purely a herd of practice. You can become employed by a large farming unit or a group of farmers, or part of a wholesaler or co-op. So the options are getting more and more as time changes. And I think as competition, the Competition Commission and whatnot changes their rules and regulations on what we can do. So a lot of the basic practice management principles apply to all of those routes that I've discussed earlier. The management practices that apply to any business would be the same as what a lot of those principles would be very much the same as what we have in a small animal practice. All right, I just want to quickly see which. Okay. So the basic business principles that would apply to any business, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to run through those briefly. And depending on the type of business structure that you have, some of these you might be doing completely within the practice. You might be outsourcing some of those responsibilities to accountants or to an HR firm that can do it for you. Or you might have, we've got a central support or administrative function, and that's got quite a couple of their own staff members. So they'll take a lot of the things which I'm going to run through now off our hands, but a lot of the things that you'll be doing at a practice level, you can't get away from or shy away from not being strong or skilled at those functions. And that would be, workflow, staff needs, training of staff, stock management. Certain things, finance, human resource management to a degree can be done by an outsourced company or by a strong administrative support function like we've got in our business. But a lot of those things you're going to have to still be able to do at practice level. The first one I'm going to touch on is human resource management. And that's generally things like payroll, managing leave with your staff, performance reviews, disciplinary issues. Hopefully you don't get into that too much. Meetings, communication, salaries. The big thing to realize here is that you're hiring and hopefully building a team, because you don't want to be I think we're moving away more and more for single man practices. You want to be able to take leave. You want to have a team that you can work and be a part of. And it's essential in building up a team and attracting and recruiting and retaining the right staff members to build up that mix of people. And that is quite challenging. And I think that's a big problem, specifically in South Africa, but globally as well, is that not many people are wanting to go into production animal veterinary practice. And so your amount of people that you can recruit is already low, and retaining those people and making it attractive for them to come and work in a mixed practice and stay there and be happy, and keeping that sustainable is very important to get that right. So hiring and building the right team. It's taken us 10 years to get to a point, maybe 8 years, where we have the right team. Everyone knows what they need to do. It's a relatively profitable business, and to get that team culture right and to get the right staff into that business, it does take time, and we don't have the benefit, as I said, of being in an urban area where you can easily, not easily, but it's easier, I think, to recruit and build that team up. Okay, so the next part of any business or practice management that I'll speak about is just financial management within the practice. Davy did run through a couple of the statements that you need to be aware of, and I think self-teaching or taking courses or whatever you need to do, or having people do it for you, if you getting into private practice, you've studied for 6-7 years, and obviously that's the majority of where your job's going to be. And two areas of practice management, which I think you really need to be on top of it. And it's probably the biggest downfall of a lot of businesses and practices is the financial management of that practice, and then also the stock management. And that's the areas where things can go south very quickly. And I think you can think that you're strong in that and you're potentially paying attention to it. But because of the nature of the job, a couple of months can pass and things can change very quickly in those couple of months. So to involve people in your business, as I said, whether it's own in-house administrative and administratively strong people, or outsourcing that, or being part of as I said, we're fortunate enough to be a part of a bigger business where that is centralized, and we do have people that can assist us with financial management within our practice. But still, a lot of that needs to be done at the practice level, and you can't not be aware of what's going on in your practice, obviously, from a financial reporting point of view. So general things that person or that function would be cash flow, payments to suppliers and payments to coming in from clients, accounts, obviously keeping track of debtors. That is a very big thing in a small animal, rural or urban practice. A lot of the debtors and a lot of that business is cash business. But within a rural setting, you're going to be working on 30 days accounts with a lot of your clients, sometimes a little bit more. So working that back to cash flow and debtors, and if you've got very big clients, it can make a very big, have a big effect on your business if that client is lagging by 10 days or defaults on a payment. And to be on top of that and have the right person being on top of that is incredibly important. And it's often not the discussion that, it's a difficult discussion to have with clients, especially if you're on that farm weekly. They see you as a veterinarian, and now you must speak to them about payments that are due or anything like that. It's something that you need to either get good at, or we are fortunate enough to also have someone within our practice, within our Darling practice, who's the right personality, and she will phone a person up very quickly and say you're late on a payment, which is nice to have on our side. As I said, reporting and analysis and being able to interpret financial statements, profit and loss sheets. I'll run through that over here. This is an example of
Dr. Gordon, your slides, there's still no movement in your slides.
Not?
No.
Nothing?
No, nothing.
Okay, let me just see, sorry. And now?
No. There it is. Okay, you've got movement now.
Have we got movement?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Elena, I'm going to keep it in this and not go back into full screen, see if it works like this.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, I apologize for that you just had to hear my voice and not see what I was speaking about. Okay, so this is a general profit and loss or income statement, or we call it a profit and loss sheet that we use within our business. So your general columns would be what you've done either that month or year or quarter, however you're wanting to report on that, or whatever you're wanting to see compared to the prior year, and then the growth and how that compares with the same period that you're looking back on. Within our business, we split that into clinical fees, so that is services billed, farm medicines and chemicals, so what we sell to our clients, and then we also break it down to small animal medicines and retail on the small animal side, so that we can see what our companion animal business is doing. And this is just for the Darling branch. The reports that we have within the larger business get a lot more complicated, but this is what I like to see, and this is what we speak to largely. we would look then at our gross margin by each of those categories. So that's the gross profit. Obviously, you're going to have quite high gross profit on your veterinary services that you've billed, potentially just taking lab costs off that you'd have there. Farm medicines and chemicals that we sell, anything between, that's got 10 to 15%, but anything between 8 and 15% gross profit on those products. Small animal medicines and retail, it's a bit of a higher margin there. You're looking at a probably 25 to 40% margin on that side. Total gross margin, generally, and this, I mean, you can go Google this for any veterinary business, would be 35 to 45%, depending on the mix of your business. Obviously, the more clinically orientated your business is, the higher gross margin is going to be. If you've got a lot of farm medicines making up your business, your gross margin is going to be a lot lower with the gross profit that is lower. And then you'd obviously be looking at subtracting your costs and other, exclude that other income, but your costs off that would give you, or these are your general costs to the business. The only one that I've really highlighted there would be professional employee costs as a percentage of revenue. So that is something that we look at. And that is generally within a lot of veterinary businesses parameter which is closely watched. And I think personally, I think it's watched sometimes a little bit too closely, because if you're just chasing vets to have a high turnover, you could potentially be missing out on skill sets where that person might not be, turning over the most money, but they're incredibly good at pulling clients into the door. They're very likable, and they're pulling, the integral part of making that business work. So that is something which you can really look at, is your employee costs as a percentage of revenue. And generally, you're looking at about 25 to 35% of revenue would be your employee costs, because vets are, it's a professional nature, and that's going to be quite a high overhead. Within the PAU business, traveling also forms a high cost, because you're spending a lot of time in a motor vehicle, and you're traveling. There's maintenance costs, there's cost of the vehicle itself. Darby spoke about depreciation, all of those things, and then petrol itself. So that's also a high cost. We have a row admin, so that's our central admin body that we've got, which charges us a fixed fee, and then we get sort of X, Y, and Z from them for that fee. And then Darby also spoke about EBITDA, and that would be your operating profit. So once you've got your gross margin, you've subtracted all of those costs. That would be the next row underneath. That would be EBITDA. And once you take off, so that's interest, earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and appreciation. Once you've taken that off, you're looking at about an 8 to 12, 14% EBITDA margin, as I said, dependent on the way your business is structured and how many products you're selling and how strong you are in clinical fees and services versus farm medicines. And that is also something which is quite sort of heavily watched in our business, is that EBITDA, which, as Darby said, gives you an indication of your operational strength of your business. So that tells you how well you're operating that business before you start taking off accounting, so financial parts of it, depreciation, tax, whatnot. And we do watch that quite closely across all the businesses within the group. Okay, so I think that's all on on that. The one thing I will say is not to be ignorant about any hidden costs within your financial reporting and your expenses. And I think that is generally what's done, and what we've seen in a couple of smaller practices is that not everything's included, and you want to be as transparent with yourself and all shareholders exactly what's going on, including exactly any costs that you're incurring within your business, so that you get a very accurate picture and an honest picture of what's going on in your business. The next part of running any business is operational management. So that would be maintenance of that practice, buying and maintaining equipment, managing assets, phones, internet, computers, whatnot. I'm not going to bore you with that. That is generally any business. We do have an operational ops manager within our business, but still on a day-to-day basis, there are things which you're going to have to do in your own practice. And if you're running your own practice or you're owning your own practice, those are things that you're going to have to stay on top of as well. The next thing which I alluded to earlier was stock management. And depending on how much retail you've got in your business, this I would definitely say would be up there with your financial part of your practice, and either making sure that you have someone that's doing that very well, or outsourcing, or getting a department like we have also, which checks our variation and our stock losses, expiries, anything like that, and being held accountable for managing your stock levels adequately. We are lucky enough on the retail side also to have, I've got two ladies that are very, very good, or two staff members that are incredibly good at taking ownership of managing stock. It can be one of the most stressful sides of a business. As I said, you're sitting with potentially hundreds of thousands of rands, if not millions of rands in stock, and things can go wrong there very quickly. So to familiarize yourself on having a good relationship with your suppliers, that helps a huge amount. We've got a very good relationship with our suppliers, that if we see we've got too much stock of something, potentially negotiating for them to take it back, expiry dates, we check that and always know at any one time what's expiring within 3 months, that we can make a plan with that. The last thing you want is to be buying a whole lot of stock and that's sitting on your shelf and expiring. And then ordering exactly what you need at the right time. It depends if you are, we are dealing mainly with intensive TMR year-round carving clients. So our forecasting is quite easy, or not easy, it's quite predictable. Generally, clients take the same amount, or with a little bit of variation, the same amount every month. But if you are in the Eastern Cape where they're carving seasonally, or you're dealing with beef clients, which are also seasonal, you'll potentially be buying in a lot of bulk before season starts. And that can be quite a costly exercise. As I showed, the margins are quite low, and getting on top of that is crucial to running that business successfully. We do stock checks monthly, and my staff members will check about 20% of your medication makes up about 80% of your revenue. So just checking those 20% of your items all the time, and just having a finger on that will help you massively as well, to know what's happening with the stock, and what you need to order, or what you've got too much stock of. Elena, are the slides still flowing? Can you still see them?
Yes, everything is still in order. Thank you.
Good, thank you. What I spoke to earlier is keeping stock when it's not needed can be very wasteful. I think it's the same for any private practice as it is to a farmer as well. The way in which it's managed, you need to be on top of your management, and you're not in the fortunate enough position as a veterinarian to have a lot of capital behind you, and getting a lot of capital caught up in stock and not managing that capital correctly can really lead to you either not being profitable or massive stress for you as the owner of that business. So putting systems in place, and then also getting people from outside to check you and to give you constructive criticism on where you need to tighten things up and how you can improve on your systems. We often get into a point where you think you're doing everything fantastically and you know your system well and you're doing what you should be doing. And to get people in from outside without feeling like you're getting criticized, it's been a very useful exercise for us. And I would strongly recommend that if retail is something which your business would be getting into. So we order our stock on what our current stock level is, what our last 3 months sales have been, what we expect to be selling, just that we've got accurate orders month to month and we're carrying the right amount of stock from month to month. Your stock turnover is an important parameter to be aware of. That's something which you can Google and read up on a little bit more. And then also the amount of stock you're carrying as a percentage of turnover. And I said yeah, about plus minus a third to half of turnover is a norm, sometimes up to what you are selling a month. So that's turnover, monthly turnover. So up to what you'd be selling in a month would be the norm of the amount of stock that you'll be carrying as a rand value. Okay, marketing. You can get into very highly complex marketing channels or using different marketing manners to try and get new business or to get word out there about what you're doing. Once again, you can do that yourself or outsource. We often find just building up good relationships with other key players within the industry in which you're operating often goes the furthest, and that relationship building is often the most important thing. So networking, having good relationships with other suppliers, with clients, word of mouth is definitely within this industry one of the best forms of marketing. And I don't need to speak to digital marketing because I think you guys are marketing. I think the younger guys that we have coming into our practice are way more inept at or better at doing digital marketing and means of digital marketing and how quickly that can be done. So Instagram, it's a little bit beyond my knowledge, but using the skills of your youth to take advantage of that. More and more we're seeing the older generation of farmers moving on and the younger generation coming through, and to be able to relate to them is incredibly important as well for marketing your business. Okay. With any veterinary business, there's a strong legal side, and we had, I think, VBM, Veterinary Business Management, for 6 months, which is 6 months that you've got to know exactly how to manage a business, if that's what you want to do as well, on top of being a vet. But what's been also one of the more stressful parts, and something which I can definitely say, preparing yourself and using companies out there. I think Vet Protect is one of them. Belonging to those member groups or those legal groups to offer you as a vet protection. There's obviously liabilities. But that said, nothing goes further than having a good relationship with your clients and being open and honest with them and not shying away. If there are problems which occur, where there's expectations which you might not have been aware of. So having good communication with your clients is incredibly important. And knowing what your clients' expectations are is also very important as much as possible. You're never going to know exactly what the expectations are of you as a service provider, but trying to be completely aware of that, and having a good relationship with that client. And if something does happen, having a proper discussion with your client can go very far in overcoming any issue that there might be. But still having legal protection. I've had 1 or 2 cases. One of my herds got tested positive with brucellosis, a beef herd. It was sort of a weekend farmer, and I went to my provider at that point, still Vet Protect, and they gave me very good advice on how to deal with that. So it's not necessarily saying it's your fault or whatnot, but there are a lot of touchy emotional subjects that often come up, whether you're a companion animal vet or you're working with dairies or beef farms. So having someone that you can go to is definitely something which I'd advocate. Then on the legal side, staff issues as well, setting up contracts, making sure that all of those things are fine-tuned, definitely having an HR firm involved or someone to consult with who can help you setting up contracts. And then business setup. If you're a young person that wants to buy into a practice or look at the different options, your accountant would be able to help you there, or also knowing or having someone from a legal point of view that you can go to who can give you information, because often once you've bought into a business or something's been set up, I see as well, then it's difficult to go back from that. So taking time when you are qualifying and looking at the various options. Things have changed from 20 years ago of the way in which veterinary businesses were set up. And there's different ways that you can become, you might be happy just with a salary. You might be part of a big company. You might work on commission. You might want a profit share. And there are different ways that you can get remunerated if you get to that point. And yeah, if you're looking at lending money, then you can go speak to Davy. He'll happily give you money from FNB to buy into that business. The next thing which I'm going to touch on, and I think if anyone's got ambition, which most of us do, and vets out there, you're going to want to grow your career and grow your business, hopefully. And that you're going to have a short-term strategy in your business, you're going to have a medium to long-term strategy in your business. What I think within practicing as a professional and running a business or being involved with the management of a business, it gets quite difficult to, have quieter periods where you might spend some time coming up with a strategy with your partners or by yourself. But being able to focus and stick to that strategy, as Davy said, being able to adapt and really maneuver and stick to it. A lot of bigger businesses, they're so in tune with their strategy and sticking to it. But if you are a professional and you want to grow a business and work at the same point, it's difficult to keep your focus on that goal that you're going for. And then, as I said, this is very broad brushstrokes, and maybe getting down to it a little bit on the nitty-gritties of what you'd need to look at when you're running a veterinary practice. But you also need to decide for yourself. It's a personal decision. How much energy do you want to put into management, and how much do you want to put into veterinary science? How much is required of you? Like I said, what do you do yourself? Not to try and do too much yourself. At the end of the day, you also want to have a well-balanced veterinary career and whether you're going to have a family or whatnot, to balance that out is incredibly important. It's very easy to get caught up with trying to be a vet and run that business successfully, and to try and really decide for yourself what you want to do and what you want to get out of that veterinary business and practice, I think is very important, and trying to stick to that as much as possible. With anything, playing to your strengths and involving others for your weaknesses. And as experience comes and as you gain a little bit more experience, you'll know more and more, we all become more self-aware of what our weaknesses are, and involving people. And I think for me and for us as a business, it's really, it sounds cliche, but building that team is incredibly rewarding, and having people around you that can give you support in managing your business. This was the first time in 8 years I've taken, well, not to be proud of it, but able to take 3 weeks of leave and business continuing like I don't even exist, which is fantastic to know that my business, our business can continue, and you're not that important. People are doing their work, and everyone's carrying that business without you being there. And I think that's at the end of the day what we all want, is to be able to take some leave and to be able to come home at night and not worry too much about our business. And then obviously being able to strengthen yourself. I've found taking courses, obviously having fortunate enough to have people around me that can offer me mentorship and help, and to rely on where I need that, has also been helpful. And I think that sums up, I thought that was quite an apt sent to me by a dairy farmer. So within your veterinary business, or any business, you're gonna be hit with problems at the busiest times. You'll be working long days with early starts, and will be faced with staff falling sick with COVID, staff members giving the wrong advice over the phone to an important client, losing 100,000 rands worth of stock. Problems they're always gonna exist, and it's being able to just deal with those issues while you still having to keep a smile on your face and offer a premium service to your client, because that's what you're going to need to do to run a successful business. So yeah, becoming resilient. I see there's a talk a little bit later on resilience, which I'm glad about, and I think it's something which us as vets also need to work on, is managing ourselves, learning to deal with stress, what triggers our stress. You've obviously on the small animal side, you might struggle a little bit more with compassion fatigue of having to euthanize lots of animals. But on the large animal side or the dairy side, there's a lot of pressure. You're involved with intensive operations, whether that's a intensive pig unit or poultry unit, and being able to deal with the stress that comes with those businesses is incredibly important, in managing yourself. And I don't think doing it without a strong team around you is, well, I found for myself, having a strong team around me really has been fantastic in being able to practice successfully. Well, yeah, to be part of a successful dairy practice. Yeah, and then being able to see the forest for the trees. Don't get too stuck up in all the small issues. Be aware of all the small issues, but have enough perspective to pull yourself away and see what's really going on in your business. And I think that's where it's good to really involve the right people who are maybe better at managing the finances than what you are, to know what's going on all facets of your business, but being able to have perspective. And then at the end of the day, you want to be really giving your clients, as I said, a premium service. So I think that's very important. Well, that's it, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Adam. I've got a question here regarding stock supply from Luke Bauer. It said, if you had a sudden demand increase, such as during a disease epidemic, to prevent over-ordering, would you suggest having a stock level that is just below the normal current demand, but with ready access to more stock from a supplier? In such a case, where you may experience having a shortage of stock, what would be the optimum turnaround time for obtaining stock to supply the client?
So that's a very good question. You must be very aware of your lead times. So lead times would be the turnaround times that you expecting stock to come in from your suppliers. And we've got some very good suppliers who you can expect stock within 2 days, and we've got some, in maybe using the word useless suppliers, that you can expect stock to arrive in 5 days till 2 weeks. So playing around with that being aware of the lead times for every company. That I will say that you can we've got direct accounts with the big pharmaceutical companies, and because we sell a lot of product, a lot of smaller practices would rely on a single wholesaler, which is easier from a stock management point of view, that you're relying on that wholesaler to provide stock for you. But being aware of the lead times would be very important. And then, yeah, so for example, if I have to use vaccinations, we try and obviously really prioritize, and we do that not individually, but between a couple of vets, what vaccines we really feel our clients should be using, that we're not stuck within that situation. But yeah, if there is a Rift Valley fever outbreak and we're not vaccinating routinely for Rift Valley fever, that is something you really got to be aware of and getting in there early, because often if there is a stock outbreak, a disease outbreak, you don't want to be caught on the back foot that the supplier or other people are ordering before you. So it's a very fine balance between carrying just enough in case there is a problem, having your clients also potentially vaccinating for the high priority diseases, and then just being on top of it, having that network of suppliers. And often the supplier will come to me and say to you, there's a problem of this farm, and they're already planning to supply the stock through us for that disease. But it is something that you've got to be aware of, red water, those sort of diseases.
Okay, there's another question. What advice would you give to a lone single vet mixed practice in a semi-rural area?
Is that the same question that follows on with regards to managing? And there we go. Lifestyle, running, and set practice, taken in mind that no income can be wasted or disregarded in order to be profitable business. With very few companion animal clients to make up for the relatively low income from the production animal clients, very few intensive farmers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same person.
Okay. I'm just trying to quickly see exactly that I'll answer what they are asking. Yeah, maybe I need to get a little bit of context for the question, if that is commercial, as in commercial beef, or if it's a communal-based setting. It is very difficult, I think, to get that balance right in that sort of setting. And that is one of the problems, I think, in this country, is that we've not, with focusing or being cynical, is that we've got, I think, a huge proportion of the country which do rely on livestock, and that is the source of income for the population in that area. but it becomes quite difficult to run a viable business in some of those areas, and it's often, I think, in those areas where people they start turning to their own knowledge or to lay people, whoever else they can, to give them advice and to sell them the products they need. Yeah, I think it's a very difficult one, how you provide a service and run a successful business in those sort of areas. I think it's just a lifestyle decision one needs to take. If that's what you want for yourself, you're not going to be making huge amounts of money, but it's probably going to be a very rewarding practice and be rewarding to work with clients in that sort of setting as well. And you need to use that for the incentive of, I think, practicing in those sort of areas. Otherwise, forming partnership with other co-ops and whatnot, I think one needs to be open-minded about the way in which you can structure your business in those sort of areas.
Okay, any other question? You're also welcome to use the raise your hand button. Dr. van der Leek, you can continue.
Morning, Adam.
Morning, Martin.
Dr. Adam.
Yes.
I guess you're also going to figure out some of my questions. Can you give us quickly an idea of the size of the practice, as in number of clients and number of cows?
All right. So at the moment, we're sitting with about 17,000 cows in milk, intensively managed cows in milk, on our books. Yeah, that's the last time I checked. Roughly, yeah, general production between anything from 37 to 44, 45 liters per cow.
Can you also quickly talk about how does the new graduate get into dairy practice? What's that pathway look like?
I think the pathway at the moment is a mix of a internship type setup, but I think when we're hiring, if we see the right candidate with the right personality, we're willing to reimburse according to that, because we have a need for that type of person. I think the route to get in, there's enough very good dairy practices within South Africa where that person can hone their skills and get exposure. Yeah, so I think that would be it. I don't know about going overseas and coming back. That's obviously an option as well. But I think forming a relationship with whether it's down here within Natal or the Eastern Cape, yeah, it's going to be quite difficult. I think one can obviously open up your own practice and go that route as well. But I do believe getting some sort of experience or mentorship. We generally, if someone comes to our practice, that person would be working with us and shadowing us for probably 6 months to a year. And we've really got to, have trust that that person's capabilities are up to a certain standard. And at the end of the day, our clients have to feel, that they can use that vet, and they need to have trust in us, saying, all right, that vet is someone that we feel is going to be able to do the work at a certain standard, but that client has to also, for themselves, come to that point.
And Gordon, the potential conflict with retailing. So selling one company stuff over another company stuff. And how your clients feel about that.
Just repeat the question, Martin.
Okay, so you're busy retailing. So if you're retailing a specific product, you're obviously endorsing that product, and that causes some bias. So how do you deal with that conflict?
I think we try as much as possible to all feel comfortable, and that's once again where we're fortunate enough to have a couple of vets that who hopefully are all being, we really honest with each other, that you can call the other one out on a product or give your opinion on a objective opinion as much as possible on the use of a product. But it does get quite difficult, and I think retailing and also being seen as the vet on the farm, one has to be careful with that relationship as well, because we really try to have it as data driven as possible, and really requesting from when a supplier is coming with a new product, we try really keep our independence as much as possible, and then also making sure that we are very comfortable with that product before we advocate the use of it on a farm. We really try, and at the end of the day, our integrity and ethics, that's our reputation, that's what's going to be left, and we try and look after that. That's the most important thing that you can do. But once again, discussion and communication with your client, I think, is important. Does that answer your question?
Yes, perfect answer. Yeah, if you stick to the science, you're fine.
No, that's it. And I think some of our suppliers get quite annoyed because they come with a new product and we say, well, that's fine, but bring us the science behind it.
And it never arrives.
They never arrive, or you get some that, and generally you end up sticking with the same suppliers, which is fantastic as well, because they've got good research behind it, or they're very, very, very good at marketing their own things as well, and maybe they're fleecing us as well.
And the last one, Gordon, the opportunities for females in the dairy industry, specifically vets.
Yeah, no, I think so. We've got Ashley working with us, who's been with us for 3 years, and she's been very welcomed on farms. There is definitely a perception. It's a very physical job at this moment in time, but that's not to say that, doing rectals is going to be our future for the next 20 years. I think we'd generally like to get in more involved, and we have got more involved with not consultancy, but being involved in the management team on the farm. So there is mentally, whether you're a male or female, we all got something, hopefully, to contribute. And I think we're slowly moving past that stage where there's a bias towards using a male over a female. It is physically demanding at this stage, so you must be willing to, do a lot of rectals. And I don't think that's going to change too quickly, because there's a lot of benefits still in doing rectals, and the value add that you can offer as a vet in that moment that you're standing behind a cow. And I think we need to always remember that 2 minutes or whatever that you're doing a rectal, you are doing a body condition score, you are deciding if that cow is a not for insemination cow, you're potentially picking up if she's, any ailment that you can see, and to really focus on that and being able to add value while you're doing the physical work or herd run is very important. So I don't think it's definitely our bigger farmers have warmed. As I said, I've taken 3 weeks holiday now, and our practice, all the staff members were integral in making that work. And so I think it is changing.
One last one, if I may.
Yeah.
You're offering services that go beyond just plain veterinary work, right? So milking routines. Can you just quickly speak to that?
Yeah, we're trying to, Martin. I think it's quite difficult to break your perspective or your how you see what you offer to your client. I think you come out of Honest to Put, and you've got an idealistic view of where you want to go with your career, and then you end up just doing the technical manual work as well, and trying to bring in, all right, we can consult to you and we can offer more than what we're currently doing. I think there has been a change in how our clients see us potentially being used on those farms. What has been beneficial to us is to partner up with, for example, Chris Ferree, Dairy Management Consulting, and his use of us, being involved with his management meetings on a farm and building a good relationship with the nutritionists so that we can rely on each other and then get involved from that point of view to really get to a point where you start charging for going to consult or your time for doing that. I don't think we're quite there yet because the economics of the dairy industry at the moment, I don't think allow that. And then obviously how we still seen by other dairy farmers as ambulatory or herd technician, but it's changing. It's definitely changing. There's a lot of clients that involve us heavily with management decisions and chatting to us, and that's incredibly rewarding to be part of those discussions. But having the discussion with the client and just going to them and saying, all right, this is what we can offer, and trial and error. You come up with a calf, doing IgGs on calves and going to a client and seeing and offering it. We've got a vet nurse, and that's also helped us a huge amount. Obviously, it's a cheaper service, but which is great, not cheaper from a poorer quality, but the salaries are less than a vet, for example. But the services that she can offer, and she's doing routinely on farms, a lot of our clients are using that as well.
No, very good. Thanks, Gordon.
Okay, Martin.